Welcome to your daily dose of theological German. We're still on Paul Tillich and still dealing with long sentences. Here we go. This sentence begins with a demonstrative pronoun, and in German, demonstrative pronouns and the definite article are the same, morphologically speaking, so you have to just tell from the syntax and from the context. So here we're going to have to say something like, to this, three forms of the non-empirical cultural sciences correspond. So this dative demonstrative actually becomes the object of the verb. So now Tillich's going to tell us what three forms of non-empirical cultural sciences are. The first one is philosophy of culture. We're not going to translate this definite article because you don't really need it in English. So philosophy of culture, which this is a relative pronoun. Of course, it looks just like a definite article, as did the demonstrative pronoun. And that's just what you got to put up with in German. You can tell from the syntax and the context and the flow of the sentence that this has to be a relative pronoun. So, which, and then in all subordinate clauses, your verb is typically going to be at the end. And so it's easier to go down and find that first. And the verb here is richten. And richten is a word that has a very wide range of meaning. If you look it up in the dictionary, you're going to find quite a long entry with several different kind of sections and different things it could mean. And in cases like that, what you always want to look for is how is it going to work when it functions with whatever preposition or other kind of feature of your particular sentence. So here we want to know how it functions with auf, and you will find that it typically, in that case, would mean something like to direct towards or to focus on or something like that. So, which focuses itself on the universal forms, the a priori of all cultures. And then the second form of non-empirical cultural science that Tillich wants to mention here is the philosophy of the history of cultural values. Here you have a couple of compound words, so history and philosophy are compounded there, and culture and value are compounded here. So the history of the philosophy of cultural values, which, and this is another relative pronoun, and so we've got here a subordinate clause again, and when we go down to the end to pick up the verb like we did before, we will actually run into a slight snag because you will notice that here you have und, this conjunction, which actually means what comes after it is going to be a secondary clause, and so the verb you actually want here for your relative clause is überleiten. And so you want to make sure that you're just paying attention to that. There is more than one verb here, and so you want to make sure you get the right one for the relative clause. And so let's go ahead and do that. Which leads through the fullness or abundance of the concretizations of the universal forms to the singular individual point of view, and thereby justifies this. And you might be wondering, why is this here a demonstrative as opposed to just a regular pronoun? Why not just justifies it? Well, this is kind of similar in English to the way we might say, and thereby justifies the same. And so we wouldn't use a demonstrative, but we might use the same. And what we're doing there is creating a greater degree of emphasis between for the connection between this object demonstrative and this term here, the singular individual point of view. That's what's being justified. And so diesen just gives you a slightly more emphatic connection there than a regular pronoun would have done. And finally, so this is going to be the third form of non-empirical science that he's going to list. Finally, the normative cultural science, which, again, a relative pronoun, so your verb is down here at the end, which brings the concrete perspective to systematic articulation or something like that.